These are my two most favorite books in the world. Uh, this one, not really a book; it's notes, and the other one is How to Measure and Deepen Your Spiritual Realization. I don't think that this book is available anymore, so it's a cherished and prized possession. Uh, and it's a book, of course, on evaluating and elevating your cultivation and meditation progress and spiritual experiences. Um, I'm not recommending that anybody in here read it at this time. Uh, but it is very good when in helping to know the experience. It's a book that shares the experiences of uh, many of the great masters and helps those of us who have arrived at this moment through different systems. Because when we, which is most of us, especially in the West, so some of us have not been born into generations of Buddhist Buddhist thought or uh, and practices, and so we like only have like a teaspoon of reference, you know, to the true attributes and benefits of some of the things that we do, and because we have a certain relationship with what we would call ritualistic religion in the past, we reject anything that looks like that, you know. And in this way, we sometimes miss the truer flavor and pointing and of the teachings and the attitude that we have to have in order to increase our altitude. And so, so this uh, gives me a really good look at how the not we say the patriarchs, you know, and we like kind of name them and number them as these are the patriarchs, and everybody else lived, but these are the patriarchs. But when I say the patriarchs, I don't mean just like the Tibetan patriarchs. I mean spiritual practitioners, you know, through from whenever something has been recorded about the spiritual journeys from then through. So it's very, very thick book. But what I like about it is that I can find myself in them. I can find my experiences, and it's not for somebody else to say that's you or you were there. It's for me to say that's me. I am here, and in this process, I begin to get some ideas about what I need to do if I'm going in a direction that needs a little bit of course correction. I'm feeling it inside, needing a little bit of course correction, or if I'm feeling like confident, like I'm in the flow, and you know, I like skateboards, but I can't use them. Um, because it seems like they get out from under me or something. They go too fast. And sometimes in our spiritual practice, it seems like that's happening. And we're on like moving and something's going too fast. Um, and so I've been having this experience, you know, because I want to share with you as a good Dharma friend how to stay current in the Dharma. The Dharma is not a thing, an outside thing to be taught. You know, it is actually the life that we live, and how to stay alive in it rather than it to become a story in our head. And whenever we try to put it up against what's happening in our life, how we're handling our life, we always have the fallback. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But it helps us to keep up. It helps us to really step into and embody the Dharma, because only that is what's alive and what's living. Hey, Brian, I didn't see you. Can you move over a little bit? I was like, Miss Brian again. That's wonderful. Good to see you. Um, and so the reason I want to talk about this is because you have to know that this particular system that we are in is an accelerated system. It's an accelerated process, and it'll be real easy to fall off if we don't keep up. It's like running on that treadmill, and then we're running like this, and then somebody turns the dial like, this is where we are now. If you still try to run like this instead of running like this, you're gonna fall. And so this is how to help us to be able to keep up, how to not fall, and to know, and you should know that this is like invitation only. So it wasn't like you were thrown into it or catapulted into it. This is truly a response to your invitation. You have to know that. If not, you wouldn't even be able to stay. He said it wouldn't even be possible to hear it. Even if you hear it and think you don't like it, that's just the ordinary mind. But you can know and have some kind of conviction that this is the result of your own requests and your own desires. I want to know more, and maybe that will help you to rest more as the lessons come, because it's the lessons are things that we discover or learn or uncover or experience. Lessons have the connotation of, if you had to put them into a place of whether they're pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, lessons sort of have the connotation of unpleasant, because we're having to shift and change our way of thinking about something. Even things that have been helpful to us up to this point, even things that have brought us to this point, and so we think of those things as good, and things that challenge that as bad. And so, but if we start to think of lessons that challenge us as good, and what we already know, not as bad, but maybe as stagnant, because we already know that, right? Just think of that as stagnant. So see, this is like the way, like it's the mind shift. It's our mind that's shifting and changing, And if we can do that, then we can more quickly get to our goal of realization, and co-arising with that is actualization. So realization is to enter a state to actually directly apprehend or know something. Actualization is to be able to walk in the attainments of it. And these two abide together. So whenever I think I have realized something, but I'm not walking in the attainment of it, I know what? That I haven't stay with the same words.
You're in your head.
No, stay with the same words. I didn't say in here.
You don't know it.
I used the word
Understand it. You use actual
realize, right? So then I have to recognize that I have not realized it. And I want to try to stay with words so we don't get same words so we don't get confused. I don't use the same word. So if I think I have realized, we always say what I've come to realize is, I realize now that so and so, and so now I'm going to be specific and not just use animal talk, but I'm talking about from a spiritual context now. We can't throw these words around indiscriminately, or we'll get confused and we'll bring them down to ordinary circumstances, and that's actually will be no realization. And so even though we talk about, well, I realize this and I realize that, if we are not flowing in not just the attainment of the state of realization, but encapsulated in that realization is the applicability to know what to use, when, how, why, and on whom or for whom. And so all of those things go are encapsulated in the realization and actualization. So today I thought I would read a little bit from portion of these notes. One cannot use the mind consciousness of an ordinary being to analyze what the meaning of this is, what the meaning of that is, and so on. One cannot use the mind consciousness of an ordinary being to analyze what the meaning of this is, what the meaning of that is, and so on. I'm going to read it one more time. One cannot use the mind consciousness of an ordinary being to analyze what the meaning of this is, what the meaning of that is, and so on. Now, it could have been phrased like this: one cannot use ordinary mind consciousness to analyze. But it wasn't phrased like that. That's why it's important really to have the teacher's words. That me being the good Dharma friend, but I'm speaking of the actual teacher. And the reason why, so there must be a reason why he didn't speak of one cannot use the ordinary mind consciousness to analyze, because he wants this to be personal to us. So he's saying you cannot use the mind consciousness of an ordinary being. So he's speaking and saying that I think of myself as an ordinary being, a human being. Human being comprised of the five aggregates. So the minute that I consider myself that, or think of myself as that, or that's the position from which I'm coming from, I've already lost the game. Do you understand where I'm trying to help? I'm trying to help us slide in further down the road and not have to travel that whole distance. He's saying, like, you can just slide in right here. Because for a year and a half, we've been talking about what we are not, right? We've been talking about the emptiness of the five aggregates. We've been talking about, so if we're still at the place that first and foremost, I see myself as that human being with these characteristics, these five aggregates is my composition, then I'm going to view everything through a deficient lens. That's what I'm trying to say. And so, try as I might to dig my way out of a hole, if I keep starting at the level of the hole, I'm never going to come out. I have to see myself somewhere else. And part of this contemplative illumination is about seeing that. For instance, we can look at one body of water, and that body of water is in the cup. And I can say, I might not say this is water in a cup. I might just say this is water. But if I was on the coast looking out over the Atlantic Ocean, what would I call it? That body of water. I call it ocean, right? Yeah. And if I was on the bank of the Mississippi River and I saw that body of water, I would call it river, right? I would call it a river. But the river, the ocean, and the water the liquid in this cup, it's all water. Yeah. Okay. So thinking about differentiation, we can see how it can become useful in some contexts. But it is nevertheless differentiation. It's all water. If we were out in a particular body of water, say the Atlantic or the Pacific or the Indian Ocean, and a storm brewed up, that's a condition acting upon the water, and it causes massive waves, our focus would shift to what? Right. We wouldn't think so much of water when we look out. We would be seeing waves. We're seeing waves, but waves is still water. And so part of what we have to do is, this is a way of stripping down the discriminating mind so that we start to move more towards the emptiness of our conceptualizations, how we have broken apart things and made them all these things, but they're really not that many things. And in the same way, in life, we have a manner and a way of breaking things down so that we have all of these things. Just a really good word for it is drama. You know, we have all of these things that we see because we have divided it into this and that, and categorized it according to feeling pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And he's saying, if you could back away from that a little bit, the only way that that we cannot grow, it's impossible to not grow, is for us to cling tenaciously to our views of what things are as we understand them right now. That's otherwise it would be impossible to not grow. And what causes us to cling to our view is our sense of comfort with what we already know, our sense that we are ordinary beings comprised of five aggregates, and seeing that one side only, that we cannot grow. And these two, the ego grasping and the seeing only of our makeup of the five aggregates that we can assent to is true. If we cling to those two, we cannot advance. We cannot grow. I like the way that Buddha Master speaks of the five aggregates. He explains the meaning of form, feeling, conceptualization, action, and consciousness. And in my Theravada training, we didn't use the word action. And I had some difficulty in the beginning because, you know, I know the five aggregates. I just roll them off and I can explain them all that. But action, I had a little bit of difficulty with, because to me, action was more like what was the movement of form, feeling, conceptualization, and the action was the movement of those other aggregates, the carrying out. I didn't see how it was an aggregate. But if we could get that and understand action as an aggregate, we could make more progress. Because we think this action is something that the aggregates like carry out, something that they do. That's the action. What I do, that's my action. But if I see that action is actually a part of the composition of the ordinary mind, oh man, it begins to change everything for me. So when Kadara sings, action is our only true home, and everything that we do, it's the only thing we own. Oh, then everything takes on a bit of seriousness. Action. Yes.
What did it replace? Self-control. Well, it's not going to be a long question. Have faith.
So
What did the word action replace in the five aggregates from the Theravada?
So in Theravada, we say form, feeling, conceptualization, consciousness, and mind objects. And there is no place there for action. So action then in the Theravada becomes something imputed upon or undertaken by the five by the five aggregates.
Like as the outcome,
Yeah,
like action, the outcome.
yeah. And so this has given me it's just that one word has propelled me forward in a certain way. It's propelled me to include my action as a part of my composition of being. Cannot separate, cannot separate the two. And it's become a game changer for me. It's such a trite, a minute difference. But it's the difference in eating bland food and just a little shake, just one shake of salt, you know, can take something from being unpalatable or bland or without taste or without something to something that is easy to, that one can eat, easy to take in. And it can change. And then now these aggregates are not struggling to perform an action, you see. So when he starts talking about things being natural, things being easy or things being effortless, it's not so much dependent. I'm not doing a good job at explaining this, but if I can take you, I see your hand, if I can take you into a direction, it's not so much of a this doing that, doing something, but my something is as much a part of the package. That what I do is as much a part of the package as every other part. They are undivided and they are codependent upon one another. So I don't have to make an effort to do an action. There's going to be an action. There's going to be a consequence. There's going to be in conjunction with these other aggregates. So like a dog's going to act like a dog, a bear like a bear, you know, a scoundrel like a scoundrel, and a holy being like a holy being. So in that process, then, I flavor my ordinary being aggregate with, I sprinkle holy being flavor on it, you know. So, and it changes the taste of existence for me. Doesn't mean that I actually act like a holy being, but that's what's in my view. Not my past and what happened to me when I was a child. And I'm not trying to see through the lens of that. I'm not trying even to unpack it. I'm just trying to see through the lens of the new prescription that I have. And when you get a new prescription, they hurt your eyes because you've seen in a different way and you've gotten acclimated to seeing in a different way. You might know that you don't see good, but however you see, that's how you see. And when you get corrective lens, it's like, oh, things are too strong, or, you know, they make you a little dizzy in the head even, you know. So like you put them on, take them off, put them on, take them off. These happen to be reading, so they on and off. But when I used to wear fixed glasses, I couldn't keep them on when the prescriptions changed because it messed with my head. It had me a little discombobbled. But I would make the effort to keep them on so that I could do what? It starts with A, adjust, right. Okay, acclimate as well. But I was thinking I could adjust. Now, yeah, I like adjust better than acclimate because acclimate implies getting used to, getting comfortable with, but adjust implies a change. And this is what's so important in our spiritual progress. And I mean, as much as we love hearing these things, they're so juicy, they're so wonderful. You know, we love hearing about them. But I'm now talking about, but when we start talking about attainment and shifting and passing from the lineage from our blood lineages, like from ordinary human beings, passed down through the blood and the essence of the male and the female in the species in this human life. We're talking about changing lineage from the lineage of of human beings to the lineage of Buddhas. Now, we're talking about something entirely different. Everything transformed. Everything. So he says, even you as humans are experiencing impermanence moment by moment. There is no essence that exists as changes are ceaselessly taking place. So I'm constantly looking for the changes that are taking place rather than creating stories that reinforce my past, that reinforced by human history, that reinforced what I was yesterday and the place I was coming from yesterday. That we've got to get out of that mode. And when we do, he says, you're looking, and everything is right there in front of us. But we're so fixated on what we already see and what we already know that mind consciousness of an ordinary being that we cannot realize it. He said, once one realizes the aggregate of form as being empty, one will naturally and easily realize that the other four aggregates are empty, one by one in sequence. All you have to knock down is one domino, just one, just one. You don't have to knock down this and this and this and this and this and this. That's what the mind tells us. Like, now I got to shift my whole orientation. I have to change everything, and I have to, so I need 55 books. to even like just try to understand a very simple concept, you know. But he says just one, and that one will create a chain reaction that will knock them down, knock them down. When you realize one thing, you realize 10 things. You may not know you realize the 10 at that time. It's only when come into contact with a condition and you go back and look in your old cubby hole for your answer, and it's a different scroll in there. But that it's like, well, when did I think like this? But it was over here when one domino fell and it toppled down. It also changed your understanding of this, or shed some light so that when this situation comes up, you will be seeing it differently. That's the great joy I have in everything concerning the Dharma. So I was thinking today about the song that we wrote for Buddha Master, the Dharma stays the same. And everybody heard what he said, but everybody heard what he said in their way, according to them. But he was speaking to who? He was speaking to me. So you can't hear what's for me. That's for me. So I've been trying, ever since he said it, I've been continually unpacking it. I don't like take it lightly, something was said. Just really, really working and unpacking it because I don't think anything said is trivial. And I knew he understood what I was saying, and the song was basically saying, if you're trying to execute something and things aren't working, it's nothing wrong with the Dharma. You have to have confidence in that the Dharma is true, and if things aren't falling out in the way that they should, it's not that the Dharma needs to realign to fit your understanding, is you need to get in line with the Dharma. And so that's and if you did, you'll see that these false appearances cannot stand. And so I forget the words now, but it was something like, just ask the waves when they come crashing in your life if you're okay. And the waves, the conditions will tell you, no, you're not okay. Ask the wind when the storms of life are blowing or something, are you okay? They'll tell you no. And I would say, don't listen to the voice of the wind and the waves. Take refuge in the Dharma, because the Dharma is trustworthy. The Dharma won't fail. So that was what and of course, someone had to translate the meaning of the words. So I know that went badly. Yeah, absolutely, because she didn't understand the poetry. She didn't understand the exactly what the lyrics meant, because she was Chinese herself. So I know that maybe part of it was she mistranslated she would have had to, what is the word when you don't exactly translate word for word? Is that what transliteration is? Well, no, that's making the words sound the same, right? Okay, well, so if she translated the words, they wouldn't convey the meaning of the song. But geez, the Buddha should be able to, right? So I took it like he understands what I'm saying, but he's saying something to me. What is he saying? What is he What does he mean? What's the meaning behind what he's saying? He said, in 2 years, you're going to rewrite that song. So I woke up this morning thinking, he said that in August, no, was it 2020, summer of 2021. And it's been more than 2 years. And it's time to rewrite the song. Now, rewriting the song, it doesn't mean that one doesn't need to have confidence in the Dharma, but he was speaking to me because that's where I was. I was like holding on to the Dharma like a lifeboat, you know, when the storms of life were raging. I'm holding to the Dharma like a lifeboat. You know, and he was saying to me, in 2 years, you're going to be in a different, you're going to have a different testimony. You're going to have, this is you holding on, needing the confidence of the Dharma to sustain you, holding on for dear life. But it won't always be like this. It won't always need to be grasping, holding on for dear life. But he was like, if you learn this, when I say true Dharma, I mean not Dharma that has been brought down to your understanding so that you can have some sustenance, but the Dharma that draws you upward into its efficacy. It, once you catch that wave, then you're going to see things entirely differently. And it will no longer be in the sense of, I need a rescue. See, we talk about saving living beings, and we can't save living beings if we need to be rescued. We shouldn't even be thinking about saving them. We need to be thinking about saving ourselves. Because sometimes, like, we're still waiting on the Dharma to save us. And he says, what the Dharma says is you got to save yourself. And save yourself first, and then you can save, and you can save others. And so he's telling us how to do this. And if we're willing, it takes patience. Because when we get a little bit of it, we like ready to like step off and save the world. But we can only save them to the extent that we have saved ourselves. We can only understand it to the extent that we understand it. We can only help others walk it out to the extent that we ourselves can walk it out. And so he keeps repeating in my notes for 600 pages. Very simple, just basically like form is none other than emptiness. Emptiness is none other than form. And once you really see that, sometimes you get glimpses of it and then it goes away. It goes away because our form can be pretty concrete. The things that we see, you know, can be pretty concrete. See meaning not just see, just all of the encounters of life. And so he says, okay, well, let me help you with that then. think of life as a mirage, a dream, a bubble, a shadow. And I'm on shadow right now. So every week I take a different illusory theme and think of life like that. The shadow I can definitely see when the sun shines and it creates a shadow, but I can't pick it up. I can't handle it, manipulate it. It's not really real. I've just put words to something that I have that's observable to me. And we named it shadow. So I started thinking of life like that. So something comes up in the course of the day, something unpleasant. How does he tell me to work with that? Well, he says, think of it this way. If we detach, and this is why he mixes the teachings all up. You cannot do a topical study a la Buddha Master. You just can't. Because it's like trying to make a cake with just flour. Or 2 or 3 kinds of flour. If you don't have the sweetener, you don't have the yeast, you don't have the milk, eggs, the water, you are not going to have a cake. And if you don't put them in the right ingredients, you're never going to get a cake. I know that because I tried before and messed up. And I had a pudding. And I think I had that thing in the oven for like 4 hours. It never did become a cake. It stayed pudding. So finally, I just put it out as pudding. But that was my scheme in mind, though. You know, like I'm abandoning that. So that's my scheme in mind. Hmm. And so this is how we have to use the Dharma during the week, in between these classes. I'll tell you, and you will unpack life in a way that is unimaginable. He says, only after I completely sever and empty myself of stray thoughts can I realize emptiness. He says, this is just a Hinayana state of realization, a small view. But we're going after the big view. And abiding in this state, thinking I have to cut off the notion of self first before I can see the emptiness of things, we will never come to the emptiness of things because we're so focused on the self. We're so focused on the self, trying to cut the self off. He says, these things have to dissolve. Yeah, naturally, but they dissolve. They what's the word when they're side by side? They're
Parallel.
They're not sequential. It's the exact opposite. So it's not cut off self. It's yes, simultaneously, and that's why one has to not continually digress in the mind consciousness of ordinary being, not continually digress there, and also must simultaneously see the emptiness behind all phenomena. And if you see the emptiness behind all phenomena, then you see phenomena as false, just meaning that it only has an appearance as long as certain factors hold a condition together. And when those conditions change, then that thing that we think is real, we can see that it's false because it begins to shift and change and fall apart. It cannot stand on its own side. So that gives us a clue of how to handle the vicissitudes that arise in our life. Oh, wait, 1 second. Yes. Sorry, I meant to come back sooner. Sometimes you have to do it a second. You have to do it a second time. I'm sorry about that. Yes, Dean.
I truly appreciate the depth of what you said in the past, like the whole thing, but the past 3 minutes, because working with patience and diligence is something that is important for me. And there are these moments of brief, albeit like a shooting star or glitter. Hate to say the word glitter because you already said something about glitter once getting everywhere. But there's these moments of just like a shooting star that goes across, and there is, as something is happening, that bright clarity. And then it's not that it's gone. Then the next thing happens. And I'm right back in that ordinary state going, whoa. And my attachment to the form goes right back to the feeling. And I ricochet and play Pong, like on an Atari game, back and forth between the two. And I've definitely come to recognize that, especially in the past 3 weeks. But the glory and the joy of being able to recognize, oh, there was the shooting star. That's there too. That's beautiful and benefit too. So thank you.
So there's a song we teach the children and say, catch a falling star and put it in your pocket. Never let it fade away. And then you do what you save it for. Right. So we have to recollect, we have to recall these insights that we have. Because when we recall them, when we go, I won't say when we go back to them because you can't go back, but when you recall them, it brings them more to the forefront and it causes other things to move from our old way of seeing or knowing something. You know, sometimes you can have an insight and you don't even know what that insight was. You just know that you just got something that you can't even articulate, but you know, it was something that just came that opened you in a certain way that gave you a different that you had a different encounter with the moment, you know, and that lets you know that there is something else, even if I don't know exactly what it is, or I haven't exactly penetrated it, that there is something else. And then you ask the question. You ask the question that comes up for you. He says, ask little question, little answer, middling question, middling answer, big question, big answer. How big are your questions? Are you asking questions? Or are we just deciding what we think and what we know? Are we humble enough to ask questions? And then wait for the answer. I mean, after we ask the question, then we get into a I know space, you know, and while the mind is chattering about what it thinks it knows, we can't hear the whispered answer. And these are the ways that we earnestly exert ourselves in practice. It's not so much what we're doing out there. Doing out there will take care of itself. This is where the exertion in practice lies. He says that you as a person do not even belong to yourself. That's just one sentence I could contemplate all week. You as a person, me as a person, do not even belong to yourself. Knowing that, when you really know that, you will enter impermanence. Knowing that, you will enter impermanence in the form of death. Very soon, everything else should be de emphasized as much as possible. Honestly exert yourself, practice, and cultivate yourself. Cultivate yourself. If we say cultivate, we think of something that we are doing out here, but we are, or our perception of self is actually the soil that is being overturned. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Therefore, you must clearly understand that before you realize the emptiness of self, do not think that forms truly exist. He says, before you realize the emptiness of self, do not think that forms truly exist. As long as you think that forms truly exist, you'll never be able to realize the emptiness of self. It will be a, well, if you want to come to the place that you can truly realize emptiness, because otherwise you'll only have a partial emptiness and you'll never be able to understand or enter into the marvelousness of existence. You know, there's a book, and I'm not going to call the name of the monk or the order or anything, but somebody tried to give our monastery the books, and the teaching is really great if you can understand the teaching in it. It's really great. But when you looked at the pictures of the monk, and all of them have frowns down to here. Nobody wanted the book because whatever it was, they didn't. Nobody wanted. It was great teaching in the book, because the teaching is the teaching, whether you realize it or not. But I couldn't give those books away. Yeah, I couldn't give those books away. So I would always, I'd always look upon people and say, well, people, if you got the old time religion, you ought to show some sign, you know. But I'm sorry, that really was a sidebar digression there. They said, but even though he talks about this, one-sided way of thinking, don't really like think so harshly of them, because he says you still cannot be considered even to be practitioners of Hinayana. At least they saw one side. Do we see any side? So, um, so that's just to put us back in our place. He shows what's wrong with it, and you don't start saying, "Yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong." He said, "But you haven't even realized the partial yet, you know." So don't get too high. You know what I like about the Dharma? If I'm too high, it brings me down. But also, if I'm too low, it picks me up. That middle way. So there's a school called the Consciousness Only School. That's just one school, one way of looking at the Dharma. But if we have the consciousness only, so we say consciousness only, everything is mind, then we only see one side of the equation. He says that's why when these teachings come forward, although they may give you more insight, deeper insight into one little aspect, you have to roll that back. It's like when you're mixing dough to bake a cake and you're stirring it in the bowl. You have to, there's a spatula-like thingy that you use to fold it, because it allows all the flour to crinkle out into the mixture. But if not, you get pockets of flour. I mean, like if you're doing it by hand. If you're using a beater, it's gonna pretty much take care of it. But if you're doing it by hand, well, also even with a beater, because we would have to scrape those vats because the flour would lump, unmixed in the whole solution. And so we have to be careful that every time we learn something, we need to only take up as much as you can that allows you to mix it into the rest of the batter. Mix it. So don't have a voracious appetite for more and more Dharma, more and more. Just take one thing and blend that into the batter. And then you can add another thing. It could be on the opposite side of the bowl, something completely unrelated to the topic or whatever you were studying before, to just try to keep balance, to keep scraping the sides of the bowl, then go to the middle, then go to the bottom. And in this way, you have a smooth batter, and everything is blended together nicely. That's what he's talking about. So when we have this notion of everything needing to be linear, it does not have to be linear. Actually, it's no way for it to be linear. And if we start seeing and take a look at these concepts, because they're still concepts, until there's realization, it's a concept, right? It's something in our mind. Until we actually realize it, it's a concept. So these are concepts. But as we take a concept and mix it together, allow it to change the constitution, of our how we already hold something. Wait for that change. Look for that. How does this alter how I understand things right now? Maybe in a good way, maybe in a not so good way, we think, how much of this do I need? How much of this seasoning, like maybe how much can I tolerate? you know? So sometimes we can mm, have something that we need to contemplate, but we can only take a little bit of it. But the person right next to us, you know, maybe that's really a thing that they are struggling with, or something that they see, something they want to dedicate themselves to. But for me, I can only take a little bit of that right now. Then take that, but do take something. You know, not just, I don't have affinity with it, you know, because I tell you, you will have helps or not have help. Just the vibrational quality of the holy beings, them being near because of your inquiry. And that brightness will light your room, will light your territory, and you will see. But if it doesn't float your boat, then they're not going to come near. They will take you at your word. They will give you your free will, and they will not be around. And what will happen is that you will not be able to understand things because you won't be able to see it. But when we call upon good friends in the Dharma, having good, wholesome conversations with them, and sweeten the mind in such a way that the holy beings are attracted to you. Attracted not because you're something, but because they really, really sense your earnestness. Not just your earnestness, but your surrender of that egoic self. Not just your surrender, but your willingness. You know, it's like, I need help, but I'm not going to ask you, you know, because I'm who I am. And I'm just speaking now about what it takes for the holy beings to be present with you. When you have this, you don't even have to invite them because that's their vow. That's their conduct that's part of, that's part of their cultivation and their vow. They do that because of their vow. There's a scripture in the Bible that I like, that I use a lot. And it says, it was something like, I answer everyone who calls upon my name. That's not it exactly. I had it a minute ago exactly. But it's something like that, he said. So it was like why, you know, there was homage being given, you know. I answer all who call upon my name. That's it. I answer all who call upon my name. And it's not just name, you know, like we think of name as a name, but this whole aggregate of conduct that makes me act upon your body, being found empty. And seeing that emptiness allows of self upon your body, allows you to act upon, truly upon all who call. I think I want to stop right there. This is a dissolving of the self. And I want you to know what's happening to you. I want you to know what's happening to you so that you can allow it, these changes that are occurring, and so that you won't fight against it, so that you won't be afraid of it, so that you don't diminish it by trying to define it, but rather seeing the vastness of it. And that vastness that you begin to see is none other than your own vastness of emptiness. And yet, you can be able to hone that in to impinge upon any circumstance at any moment because of the vastness of the emptiness behind the aggregate of action. It allows for any action to be undertaken. And when we understand this, we'll understand skills in a different way. We'll understand talent in a different way that has nothing to do with us individually. And then we'll be fit for every kind of good work. Somebody close. Anybody want to say anything today before I close?
May all beings in all realms be free from fear and uproot the causes of their fear. Be free from their suffering and sorrow and uproot causes of suffering and sorrow. May all beings in all realms experience joy and increase causes of their joy. And may all beings be free.
We dedicate whatever merit there may be in our practice, in our desire to truly awaken. We offer it to all living beings everywhere, without exception.